Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'm chatting with Natasha Waugh, a fantastic filmmaker whose short film Terminal has picked up more awards and nominations than you can shake a stick at. And now her hilarious short Mother is doing the festival rounds. Also, she's shadow directing the new season of Can't Cope, Won't Cope. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you very much.
First off, welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. You're no stranger.
No, I'm not. And, this has been the first time I've been on the receiving end of the questions. So it's a real pleasure.
Yes, I'll grill you then so you feel terrible. So tell me, how did you get into film?
I kind of knew that I wanted to be a filmmaker for a long time. There was a lot of importance placed on films within my childhood. I have two older brothers and an older sister, and one of those brothers is very much a film buff. He grew up with me saying, you should stay up and watch this film and definitely watch this DVD and that DVD. So I kind of was given this appreciation from a very young age. And eventually I remember watching like behind the scenes footage, and eventually I was like, do you know what? I think I'd like to be a filmmaker. That was kind of a 10-year-old Natasha being like, yeah, definitely going to make films. And then I went off to secondary school and I felt like I got a bit more realistic. And then maybe towards the end of my secondary school, like 16, 17, I was kind of reading lots of Empire magazine. And I was like, no, definitely, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And I just completed a film camp. Like I remember I did summer camp and we just had to it was like digital film school, which Tailored Films run. And that was kind of it then. Skip forward to UCD and I studied English and film theory. And film theory, I loved it. Now, it doesn't teach you how to pick up a camera and do any of that stuff, but I was a member of the film society there and they had lots of cameras. So I was able to sort of indulge the passion I had for wanting to be a filmmaker through them, and then use the education I got from and the appreciation that I got from film theory classes that way. So then I left college 2013 and I really wanted to make a go of the career. I was very determined, but I couldn't really afford it. And I remember I did my first job that summer, 2013. I was a locations trainee / trainee assistant director for Get Up and Go, which was a feature film, independent feature film. But I didn't get any jobs after that, maybe because I wasn't very good. But I got a job that was very different to filmmaking, and I used that job. I was a professional barista, and I used that job to fund all the films I made for about 2.5 years. And I made my first short out of 6 that winter. And that was kind of literally all I did. Was a lot of the time I made my own stuff, and then I made more connections, and I did dailies. So I did dailies for Vikings and that kind of thing. And then eventually it came to a point where I was being a barista and I was turning down film work. I was just so busy that I couldn't do both anymore. So I decided to leave my job, and my parents were somehow very okay with this because I still live at home. I'll be very honest about that because it kind of supports my career, if I'm honest. So, and that was it. That was the end of 2015, and I had made the decision to make Terminal. I'd written Terminal at that point, and so I used to hoard my wages and make films, and that's what I did. I hoarded my wages and I left my job and I blew them all on Terminal, and it really worked. It really paid off.
Definitely.
So that's a bit of a long
#IFTA-nom.
Yeah.
So that was pretty nice.
That was amazing. Yeah, that was a real highlight. It really was. But it wasn't very straightforward for me. I kind of really put the head down, and I had to work very hard to kind of get a foot in the door, as they say. But eventually I did, and it's not impossible,
So it was really a perfect timing for a story like that to be told, and it really did. We had an event here in Filmbase at the time,
right.
And we screened it, and I know there was it was because it's such a beautiful, sensitive film, and it's very kind of kind and warm. So it's a lovely choice, and the characters are really fleshed out. So it's a really nice thing to go. It's pro-choice, but it's pro-empathy, really. Just a gorgeous film.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And that, I think, was very important to me, that I got it right, because I remember stressing about it so much just before I went to film it. And then just after, I was like, oh my God, have I got this totally wrong? A, is it going to be, a terrible film? But B, like, how am I the way I'm portraying everything, is it going to be enough to, you know, this could really make or break me. You know, it could be the film that's, you know, sensitive portrayal of reality for women, or it could be the complete opposite. You know, I worked very hard on the script. I did a load of drafts. The first draft is very different to the shooting draft. So I was very paranoid about that. So I was very, very adamant that I try and do it justice and try and do it as good as I possibly could. So, but yeah, I think it was tough, but I really just wanted to. It was tough in that regard, but because I really just wanted, like you were saying, to show, and you know, I wanted to show this, put a face to the stories that were almost always faceless that I heard. You know, you'd hear stories of such and such going over, and this person and that person, and they wouldn't really have they might not have a name, you might know what they looked like, but I really wanted to tell a human story and not a story about committing a crime. And I just present people with a situation. This is the black and white, you know, this is a crisis pregnancy. This is the decision that they have to make. And maybe I should say, you know, it isn't black and white. It's complicated, and you have to allow people to make that decision. And this is that. And I should probably stop talking now, because I will get into maybe the different debate. Different debate. Yeah.
We won't go too far into it, because it is a totally different topic altogether. But oh my God, how relieved were you when the vote came in?
Oh my God, I was very, very emotional. I remember I went into Dublin Castle and I met people there, and as soon as I remember getting very emotional. I was coming in on the bus and I passed the mural of Savita, and I remember getting very emotional as soon as we passed that. I was very glad I was wearing sunglasses at the time. And then I remember I just went straight to my friends in Dublin Castle. I met up with them, and as soon as I met my friend Sharon Cronin, producer actually, who's produced Mother, I just fell into her arms and sobbed, because I was so happy, but I was so shocked, and I think I was very overcome, as a lot of people were, you know, very overcome that kind of result had been achieved.
And relieved, I think. I had a very similar emotional reaction. There was just such a sense where so many women were really let down over the years, and you just, who knows how long all this legislation will take to come into force, but you just feel so relieved that it's gone through, so people won't be in those situations again. But yes. Anyway, that was such a timely thing. Yeah, total bit of a side thing. So just one thing I was actually, before we go off it completely, I know other people who had done films on that topic and then got quite bad reactions back to it of like members of the public and on social media and things. People could have been quite aggressive, because obviously it's quite an emotive topic for a lot of people. I'm just wondering, did you get any negative backlash?
No, and that really surprised me. Like, that genuinely was something I was braced for as long as I had made the social media pages for the film, which was almost as soon as I had wrapped. I made a Twitter page and I made a Facebook page, and nothing at all. And that really surprised. I thought that I would get some commentary and some feedback from groups or people that were anti-choice or pro-life or whatever, but I didn't. And I think at the time the only person that they tweeted at us was just some random anonymous Twitter account, and all it said was, "Natasha, do you have an opinion on when life begins?" Which is really neither one-sided. Really, it's a very neutral question, really, if you were to kind of look at it on the page. But I didn't respond, and I was like, okay, this is the beginning of it. And my mum turned around and I told her, and I said, why don't you just tell them that it begins at 40? And that's actually a story I tell a lot at Q&As, because people ask me that question a lot. Yep. But no, I have to say, as soon as we went public with the link, as soon as people were able to see it online for themselves a couple of months ago, we got nothing but praise. And I think people that wanted to see it watched it, and people that didn't want to watch it probably didn't, because it's very open about what it's about. It's not, there's no vagaries. But yeah, no, none. It's surprising. Really, I thought for sure I would get something, and I didn't.
Very interesting. And you talked about your process, your writing process.
Yeah.
So you've actually directed a lot of shorts by
6.
other people as
Oh,
well?
yeah.
So I'm just curious to how you find your projects, and then I'll come back to the writing process after.
I directed 3 shorts that I did not write. So for running commentary, first of all, I made that just after I made my first short out of college, Food Fight. So I just collaborated with Miriam Devitt, who's a fabulous actor, and she was starred in Food Fight, and we became kind of very, very good friends. And she presented me with the script soon after, and she said, I really want to make this. And it was kind of based on running commentary. If you haven't seen it, it's available on Vimeo if you want to give it a look. But it's about kind of street harassment, and this runner who goes out and she gets harassed by anyone who she passes, basically. And I kind of empathized because I ran a lot and she ran a lot, and we both had similar experiences. So we went off and did that. So that was kind of just, at the time, I don't think we changed it a lot, the script, but it was all, we just kind of had fun with it. We shot in Herbert Park, and we just discussed points of view, and we discussed how we wanted it to look and feel, and we were able to kind of plan how we would shoot it. And then we shot it in this really interesting and subjective way where I had a friend who we hooked a little cart trailer thing to a bicycle, and I sat on that platform, that little trailer, and I shot. He'd cycle, and then Miriam would be in front of me running, and that's how we shot it.
So there was a bit of an engineering job going on there.
So there was a bit of engineering, and
yeah.
it was very small, but that was just kind of herself and myself kind of breaking down the script and shooting it in a very interesting way. And then The Betrayal, I co-directed that, and it was written and co-directed by Kamila Dudina, who's a Polish filmmaker who's really, really amazingly passionate. And I saw her short film Testimony, which is really great. And I think that's available online as well. But she and I just met for coffee soon after I left my job as a barista. I just said, would you like to meet for coffee and we'll talk shop? And we had just launched Fightback Films, which is kind of a production company. We sort of have. It's not a functioning company as such, but it's sort of an umbrella under which we make all our shorts. And we had coffee, and then she literally just put this 30-page script on the table and said, "Will you direct this with me?" So I was a bit taken aback. But that was kind of a really important film for me to make because it was quite long, and because Camilla was quite ambitious with the scale in which she wanted it to be, and because it had to be because it was so long. It was very highly collaborative with everybody, from everybody down to the DP to her, as it should be.
How long was the shoot? 30 pages?
It was 6 days, and we shot it over 2 weekends, so 3 days and 3 days. But it was really, really good. It was great to do something of that scale. I was able, we were able to kind of collectively form shot list and rehearse, and it was a totally different level. But that was all about kind of communication, as was Mother. And Mother is kind of, that's how I would really approach every script I do, is just trying to get other people's points of view, but more so I think with other people's work, because I don't have that initial level of investment than if I were to write it. And it's kind of all about making sure that I have my own vision as a director correct, and then kind of just listening to what the writer's initial vision was and what the producer feels and how everyone else feels about it. And then just kind of, I'm very much about visual treatment, so I write a visual treatment, and I kind of send it off to them and see what they come back with. And does that make sense?
Yes,
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting process as well. Would you do storyboards if you're
working? Yeah, I did it with Terminal. I was very, very particular about that because I wanted it to be really sharp. And I wanted it to be like, one of the main things that really, really cripples production is when people are unsure, when they are uncertain, and they are not able to think on their feet. And you have to be adaptable. So you have to be able to kind of work around what you can't do. But I wanted, at least for Terminal, to be so prepared and have really understand what we wanted to achieve in a very short space of time with very little money. So I storyboarded that, and I kind of worked off that as a reference with Emer Graham, the director of photography. So that was definitely part of that process, was, you know, picking color palettes and doing storyboards. So she knew what I was, even if we couldn't do exactly that, she kind of knew how I wanted to shoot it and how I wanted it to look, and she kind of brings her own thing to that anyway. So yeah, totally. Storyboards are great. Yeah.
Excellent. So when you're working on a project yourself, you said you had lots of drafts. How would that normally go? From idea to, you know, storyboards?
With Terminal, it became a lot of research based on people's experiences. And then you kind of have to show everybody that. And that can be really hard, because you're basically showing people all the crap, and you're showing people all the things that you think are good, and you kind of have to see what, you have to just give it out for notes and just see what other writers and other filmmakers come back with. But yeah, no, Terminal was really just constantly chipping away at you know, the situation, and making sure that I was doing that justice by listening to women's experiences and listening to all sorts of stuff like news broadcasts and documentaries, and making sure that I had a really good grip on what it was that I was writing. And also some of it was my producer, David C. Lynch. He had some suggestions on how to make it a more visceral film. So I was kind of putting that in and seeing if that worked. And it did, which was great. So again, that's kind of taking on board notes as best you can, and either dismissing them because maybe you really feel that it isn't right, and then trying to kind of use them, even if you are using them just to say, no, that doesn't work, you know? Yes.
So let's have a chat about Mother. How did you become involved with that project?
So I applied for... So Galway Film Centre and RT run the short film scheme every year. And they choose a writer, a director and a producer and put them together. And they go make that film. So I applied as a director, obviously. And I didn't get contacted for a few months after the application. But in that time, they had whittled down the short list of writers to 3 scripts. And we got sent those 3. They shortlisted, I think I think there was 9 directors they shortlisted. I don't know about the producers. So out of the 3 scripts they sent us, I chose Mother, and I took it to the interview and I just pitched it, and that was it. That was how I got involved. Excellent. So it was very simple, you know.
Who would be your, say, film style inspiration? Where would you be like, yes, this is where what I'd like to be?
Oh my God, that's such a hard question because it's so varied. It kind of goes from film to film, to be honest, rather than person to person. I love the sensitivity that Lenny Abramson uses in all his work. I really, really love that. I thought Room was so brilliant, and I thought he approached that subject matter with real compassion and real love and kind of real empathy, as we were saying, and, you know, in portraying such a horrible situation for 2 people to be in. But then he kind of turns that story on its head and then makes it not about a woman who's kidnapped, and he makes it about a mother and her son. I really like Noah Baumbach's work because I think he takes the human element and really runs with how weird and quirky it can get, and I think there's a certain truth to that, and I really love that. When I think about it, I absolutely love Nora Ephron. I'm a huge fan of her writing, and I think it's because she does a lot of really character driven stuff, and I think I do a lot of character driven stuff just by default. Yeah. So I think When Harry Met Sally is one of the best genre scripts ever written. I think it's brilliant. I think it's smart and it's witty and it's just great, lovely watch. I've seen it countless times. I love Andrea Arnold's work. I think it's very bold. Like A Fish Tank, I think, is superb portrait of class and gender and circumstance. I think it's like I don't even know if I could ever do something like that. Lynn Ramsey, I think she's super in how she treats her films visually. She shows so much without saying enough, or without saying very much, and that is enough.
There does seem to be a common thread of understanding and empathy in a lot of the ones that you admire, which I think is there in your stuff as well.
Oh, thank you.
So yes,
I hope so. You know, so I'd like to say something. I feel like I have something to say, and that's why I'm a director. But it's the only way I know how to say things. You know. Does that make sense?
Excellent. It does indeed. Okay, so you've worked actually on a whole bunch of different projects.
Yes.
What were the different experiences like?
When on shorts or I think people is a big. I think character, like I was saying, characters, people is a big common thread. I think. I was kind of laughing that I should do a trilogy of people just talking to each other, because Food Fight is about two food critics talking to each other. Terminal is about two women talking to one another about their journey that they're about to make. So I think that's probably the common theme, is people and how they interact with one another without even meaning to. That's obviously what I'm interested in. I find it hard, I think, as an emerging director to really define, to say to people like, this is my voice, because I think I'm still working it out. And you know, when you look at Terminal and you look at Mother, they're so different. They're very different. But I think that's the only common thread that I can really think of. So I think at the moment I'm just picking things that interest me, that move me, that kind of turn me on as a director, as a creative person, and just hold it dear and just spit it out.
If you could go back in time and had like a bit more time and a bit more money to work on any project, what would you do?
For time or more money, if I had more money, it would be to pay everybody.
Yeah.
You know, because I've done 5 shorts where everyone did everything for a favor. And I think if I had more money, I'd just pay people. And whatever I chose to remake or to reshoot, it would absolutely be to pay people for their time and support and generosity.
And soon you will. Oh, and
yeah, well, we did on Mother, so that's nice.
Yeah. So let's say people finally got a few bob. So tell us a bit about Mother. What was the casting process like for that?
That was grand. And I'll tell you, because myself and Jonathan and Sharon, we were all very much in agreement on who should play Grace, the lead.
She's fantastic. Hilary Rose.
Hilary Rose, amazing. I love her very much. I think she's a fabulous actor and she's a great person. So we were all very much in agreement about her being the lead. And lucky enough, she and Jonathan had worked together on The Young Offenders, because he worked on the feature and he was about to work on the series with Peter and her. As a script supervisor, that's kind of what he does amongst all his writing. So he was kind of able to pass the script on to her immediately. So we had to wait a little while, because obviously she was very busy shooting the series for Young Offenders. But it was like we had to kind of make a list of people who may have, we kind of thought, you know, if Hilary can't do it or doesn't want to do it, then we have to think of somebody else. But luckily, she was totally on board for it, and we were able to kind of wait for her so she would have the time to come on. So that's what the casting process was. And Chris took a little bit longer. Lachlan plays him, Lachlan O'Marin. And we were kind of like, what should Chris be like? Who is he as a person?
He's in Poison Pen, isn't he?
He is in Poison Pen. So Sharon had produced Poison Pen and Lachlan had been in the lead. And we were talking about it for a long time. And then all of a sudden, Sharon goes, what about Lachlan? And obviously I know Lachlan, I think as everybody does, from Board v Equality has. So I just thought, oh my God, perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
Doesn't that real good deadpan kind of...
amazing. Yeah. And I know I'm from the Fla, he got the most laughs, I think, just from his general demeanour and his delivery of everything. He's absolutely, like, I couldn't ask for a better couple, you know, in the two of them with a Mother. But he was like, as soon as Sharon mentioned him, it was like a light bulb went off. You're like, oh yeah, of course. Perfect. Yeah.
And casting the fridge, what was it like when one of your main characters is a fridge?
Oh man, that was tricky, because it's in the script, it's written as a smeg fridge. Oh. So it's written as all her actions are, you see, her, it's very important to, we made sure the fridge was a human, to a person as well. So she is written in the script as Smeg. Smeg does this, Smeg does that. So we knew, because of what the film is really about, and what it's portraying, essentially, that it had to be this old school retro fridge, that's kind of, I think using that style of fridge carries a lot of weight anyway, because I think it implies a lot about a certain era that I think we were trying to harken back to. But that was a bit tricky, because we kind of had to squeeze that into our budget, and we had to get the right look, and we were very we did kind of look at alternatives, but we were very we really held out to get the Smeg fridge because we knew that the any fridge that looked contemporary just did not hold the same style, or it didn't say what we wanted it to say. So we kind of knew that it had to be Smeg, but we got there eventually. Our fabulous art director Anna Carney found this amazing deal on this secondhand Smeg on Dundeal or something, so we're very lucky because Smeg fridges are expensive. Yes. Brand new, they're like $2,000.
That's why they love them so much.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was absolutely madness. But so we were able to get the secondhand one.
It looks excellent. What's the festival plan now for this?
So we just premiered at Galway. There are some promising, very, very promising festivals on the horizon that I can't really talk about. Ooh. Because of, well, a few reasons. But I don't want to. But basically, I think we're. I
think I know.
Yeah, no, you probably do. But it's we're very confident that it'll be a bit of a definite crowd pleaser. And it'll definitely come to future festivals near everyone. I hope. Everybody.
So, tell me about your shadow directing for Can't Cope, Won't Cope in the last season there.
That was
great.
That like? That was really cool. So, I applied through Screen Training Ireland and was chosen, which was great, and managed to shadow Imogen Murphy, who's a really interesting director who was directing the second season.
Super accomplished as well.
Really accomplished, yeah. And I was lucky enough that she was, her DP for the entire season was Kate McCullough, who's incredible. Yeah. So it was great to see that combination of like competent, confident director next to hugely talented director of photography. But it was great because obviously I'd been on sets before as an assistant director, and I'd kind of been privy to a little bit of being able to watch the director work only really to a certain extent. So this really afforded me the time to watch her in action all the time.
And you're in the inner circle then when you get explained stuff as well, which you wouldn't if you were off, shouting at extras to move away from the food.
Yeah, totally. And I've been there. And it's the nice thing was that I, not only did I get to watch Imogen, but I got, like you were saying, I got to talk to everybody. I spoke to makeup artists and hair designers and sound and all sorts, like what makes you tick. I mean, what do you like in a director? What do you not like in a director? So that was really, really beneficial because I was able to just take that away with me then going into, that was winter. That was like November, December. So, and we shot Mother at the very end of January, early February. So I was able to take all of that with me into our production. But Imogen's amazing. She's really confident. I took huge amounts away from how she kind of controls the script. Like she knows the script like the back of her hand, and she knows the characters like the back of her hand and how it should be. Yeah, and that was really good to see. Very, very interesting. Yeah.
So you were on this fabulous female-centric set on a project about female protagonists.
Yeah.
So things have definitely changed in the past, even 2-3 years, like massively.
Yeah.
Just from your own experience, how do you feel about that?
I think it's great. And I think, I think times are changing.
Definitely.
I think it's a very good time to turn a negative into a positive. I think Screen Ireland are definitely doing the right thing and incentivizing using women at the helm of projects. I myself have entered POV to get a first feature made, hopefully. I think that's brilliant. Yes. So I really appreciate that drive to bring women into the fore, women who write, women who direct, women who produce. So I think it's definitely more foregrounded than maybe it was. And I don't think, if I'm being honest, a lot of the negative behavior and attitudes around film, at least directly, I have not been privy to, which I'm like, I have and I haven't, as in I've been subjected to a few things on sets, which I won't mention. By and large, on the broader scale, I've been very fortunate to be starting my career as an emergent director now, because at least when it came to the Screen Training Ireland scheme where I was shadowing Imogen, Ailish McElmeal from Deadpan, it was like she was on the board of Women in Film Television Ireland, but that scheme was women only. Yeah, it was women only, and that was great to be able to have that privilege for once. And I've been very lucky in that the productions that I've worked on whether they are as a director or as an assistant director or whatever, most of them have been produced by women.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have been directed by women. So I worked with Lisa James Larson on Striking Out. I was an assistant director, but I was able to watch her work. I was an trainee assistant director on Rebellion season 2, and that was directed by Catherine Mooreshead. She was a fabulous director. Imogen Murphy directed Can't Cope, Won't Cope. I was lucky enough to be mentored by Dervla Walsh for Galway Film Centre RT scheme that funded Mother. So I remember somebody saying to me, you know, you cannot become what you don't see. So I've been very lucky that I've been afforded opportunities to watch powerful, amazing, talented women work in film. And I can say, this is how they do it. I can definitely do it as well.
What's up next then for you?
It's hard to say. Well, basically I've got a few things in for development. I've got one big project in for development funding that I'm waiting to hear back from Screen Ireland about that. That's the feature that I co-wrote with a very close friend of mine and really amazing talented writer, Saoirse Kerrigan. And Sharon, who produced Mother, is also producing that feature. So hopefully that'll be what I'll be working on next. And there's a couple of other things which I won't mention because I'm attached to it, but I don't want to jinx it. Yeah, I don't want to jinx it. If anything were to change, then it would just be very awkward. So that's kind of it. And then I'm going to just be focusing on the writing and focusing on potentially other features. And, you know, I've nothing set in stone at the moment, but hopefully it won't be long before I do have something.
Excellent.
And
well,
you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, and you better come back and talk to us about it when it needs a bit of a plug. We look forward to watching it.
I love Film Ireland.
Yeah, thank you so much for chatting.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for talking to me.
So all the films that you mentioned that we can find online we'll put in the description.
Oh, great.
So if you want a cheeky little watch of anything, make sure to see there's some great films in there.
Yep.
Definitely Terminal is my top one. I love that.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Totally biased. So thank you so much for chatting to us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Make sure to check out the Film Ireland site for all the latest from the Irish filmmaking community, including news, reviews, interviews, feature content and exclusives.